This week, a brand new gaming convention debuts, and Wizards of the Coast gives their stance on counterfeit Magic cards.
And our topic of the week, deck building. What makes this game mechanic so popular? What does the future hold for this? I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast. Maybe you've heard of the game Cosmic Encounter.
I'm sure we've mentioned enough on this show already.
We probably have. It's one of my favorites, one of our favorites. Been around since the 70s. And its latest incarnation is published by Fantasy Flight. It's a game all about different crazy alien races and how they interact and try to vie for control of the galaxy with one another.
Hilarious diplomacy.
Exactly. Well, Fantasy Flight has just announced that they are holding a convention exclusively for Cosmic Encounter. The name, of course, is Cosmic Con. It's going to be in Minnesota. The first one will be this September, actually at an official Fantasy Flight headquarters type place. And it's going to be some of the original designers of the game will be there, as well as, if you watched our show maybe a month or so back, we talked about an upcoming expansion that's actually designed by fans.
Oh yeah, and we're very excited for that.
And some of the fans who worked on that will be there, and so you'll get to talk to these designers. They're going to have, of course, gameplay sessions and contests and all kinds of like design your own aliens and see who can win the most games and all that kind of crazy stuff, which sounds really fun if you're really into Cosmic Encounter. And it's kind of it's cool that this game is big enough to merit its own convention.
Well, I was thinking about that when you first told me this. I'm like, why would you give like one game an entire convention? But then you look at Comic-Con, how crowded it is now.
Right.
I mean, this might be what exactly we all want.
Maybe this is the future. You get one con for every little individual thing. And it is 3 days.
Well, if you think about it, a lot of TV shows already do that. I mean, I know there's a Power Ranger comic, there's a Transformer convention. I mean, it's not surprising. I'm sure there's plenty of other TV shows that have their own conventions.
Yeah.
Why not board games?
And I think...
And think about how, actually, this is the perfect example of Cosmic, how many alien species there are. I mean, we've probably done maybe not even 10% of them. Right. Now you get 3 days to actually make sure you can get to them all.
And I think there's something about it. There's a good community, I feel. I mean, for board gaming in general. But for this game, also, it's been around for a long time.
You never think about that, but it really does. And it does not look it. It looks fantastic.
What do you mean?
Cosmic Encounter,
What don't I think about it?
It's been around for so long.
Oh, well, because the new additions and stuff, yeah. And it feels very modern.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I think it's in a smaller venue, and it's also, the tickets are only $25.
Oh, that's very
for all
nice.
3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I think what's cool about it, too, is besides the Cosmic Encounter, because it's in a Fantasy Flight place, their official store is there, and they have a cafeteria that the employees eat at and stuff. So it's probably cool just to visit it. Anyway, that's that. If you're in the Minnesota area, maybe you want to check it out.
In Magic news, they've recently announced their actual what they've been working on to actually stop counterfeiting. Before we knew of its existence, but they weren't really telling us who was doing it. But now they've actually announced they actually stopped a lot of different people. Apparently there's this one guy in North Carolina that had a whole collection and was selling it. Apparently there's also a big factory in China that was printing them all and stuff.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yes.
Kind of surprises me, actually, but go on.
They've, of course, also tried to take measures in how they made the cards. If you notice, actually, in the most recent set, M15, the rares and mythic rare cards actually have a little foil stamp at the bottom of the card, which makes it much harder to do a copied version of, because it's much harder to do the foil. It's sort of if you notice, dollar bills now, the bigger bills will actually have more foiled parts on it instead of just the paper.
Yeah.
So
that's, I would have guessed that there's, individuals making counterfeit cards. I never thought about a factory mass producing them for sale.
If you've tried playing Standard in Magic, you'll realize it's extremely expensive. Because there's usually maybe 3 or 4 decks that are the main deck, so those singles go up in price. I mean, at one point, one Planeswalker was going around easily $50 to $100. And of course, you want 4 copies of it.
Yeah.
So it's Magic is becoming a really good way, for singles to make a lot of people make money off that.
But isn't part of the appeal? So it's purely to trick people into buying counterfeits, or is the problem people bringing their counterfeit cards into tournaments and things like that?
Well, no, it's definitely for money reasons. It's not to use them.
Okay.
Because
I would think if you're a collector or a player, you want the real card.
Exactly, and not only that. There's tournaments like for the oldest form that allows every single old card. Some of them there's maybe like 10 maybe around. It's nearly impossible to find. They allow something called proxies, in which maybe you write on the back of a card, Black Lotus or something. Right. Which there's even a tournament now they allow for that, because it's as long as you're playing the game. And it's understandable that some of these cards are almost impossible to come around, which is really unfair then for people who might not be, multimillionaires.
Right. Those unlucky few. I pity them.
So, as far as I can know, maybe some people do it. I don't see a real reason why. It's much... If you really want to play in the game, I guess there's a tournament. But usually if you're really going to the high-cost tournaments, you're going to go all in with your cards. I don't know many who would do...
Have you ever come across a counterfeit card in the wild?
Myself? No, I have not. Well, at least not that I know of.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe they all have. But that's good that they're...
Yeah, it's what you got to do is the more you get popular. Especially with anything that's tournament related.
Right. Yeah,
video games already have it with people like trying to hack the games and stuff, so it's no surprise Magic has to come across this. And it's a good thing that it is. It means it's becoming big.
So... Another game that's one of our favorites, at least one of my favorites, I don't know, is Cyclades.
No, I like it a lot.
Okay.
I still think Cosmic I definitely say is one of my favorites. I'm not sure about Cyclades saying that's one of my favorites.
Okay, if everyone at home taking notes on our favorites and the rankings at home.
We won't actually tell you the list. You have to find out.
Yeah.
First person to mail in, we get a little gift. Not true.
None of that's fine print on the bottom. It doesn't happen. Anyway, the game Cyclades is one where you take the part of people in ancient Greece, and you're trying to gain control of the most islands by worshipping different gods, getting their different abilities, and having battles, and there's mythological creatures and stuff like that.
And the first to control two of the major cities, control being the optimal word there,
right.
wins.
Well, they have just put online the rule set for the new expansion that's coming out later this year, which is Cyclades Titans. So I'm going to give you the skinny on some of the stuff that's going to happen.
Ooh, I'm excited about this.
Big stuff. So there's a whole new board. there are Titans. Actually, I'm not even going to get to them for a while. Whole new board where the previous one was all islands. This one is actually two big land masses and with multiple territories on them.
Is this a standalone, or is this meant to...
No, you need to combine them because this only it comes with Kronos as the new god, but you need the other gods.
Okay, so would you ignore the map then, or do you choose?
I think you would... I guess you would choose. I'm not sure if they're interchangeable or not, but I think you only use one at a time. But the territories work just like islands anyway. It's not like you can move freely or whatever.
Right.
The other thing, though, is that this one allows up to 6 players to play.
That's nice.
But if you're playing with 6 players, and if you choose to at 4 players, but at 6 players you have to, the rules are team-based instead of free-for-all. So it would be 3 versus 3 or 2 versus 2. Which is basically the same thing as the game, but your team together controls. Which sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely nice, though, too, because then you can make some more risky moves. Like, because your back is protected more.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a little camaraderie in that game. So what Kronos does is obviously where the title comes from. He gives you Titans, which are basically just troops,
but big.
But they're big.
I guess they count for like
they
3 or
count actually for 1 troop.
Really?
Yes. The big thing about them, the real reason they're important, is because when you move them, you can move your troops with them, so you're no longer locked to needing Ares to move your troops to attack. That's really what makes it special.
How do you move the Titans?
Through the... I think that just as a troop. It's basically a troop.
Okay. But without Ares, it can move.
You mean without Kronos? That's a good question. I think so, but I actually honestly don't.
So you have 2 ways to move armies technically now.
Yes, that is the point of it.
Okay.
Yes.
You
can probably move them together with the troops.
We'll introduce any new monster cards.
Oh, yes.
That's my favorite part always.
New monster cards and new, actually, they're artifacts that go in the same deck. Ooh, so you can get stuff like Zeus's lightning.
That's definitely cool.
And some other stuff. Kronos can also let you buy any building from the gods above him in the lineup. So you have 6 gods normally, and each one lets you buy a different building type. So say he's on the bottom of the track, you can choose from any of them. Or if he's on the second to top and only Athena's up there, you can buy the Athena's building.
Sorry, 6 gods? What's the... Is it the ones from the other expansion, like Hades? And
unless I was counting Hades. Maybe there are only 4. Plus Apollo, but he doesn't count.
Because I'm wondering also, because Hades expansion has been out of print, right?
It's hard to find, yeah.
Or would it be included in this?
No.
Okay, so it won't be like...
it's not like a catch-all if you couldn't get the other
That's a shame, because... I'm very curious to see what they did in that. I wonder why it was...
Well, maybe, they'll put some more into production if this does well and all that kind of thing. But anyway, it sounds pretty fun, especially the team-based... Oh, and there's the new Metropolis types, new city types. There's new stuff.
So you can actually spec your city to be more towards...
Right, as opposed to...
It's not just, I made the victory point.
Right, exactly. But definitely check out, those rules are online. You can find them on our links below and read them yourself.
Well, as we've been saying before in multiple episodes, D&D finally came out. And one of the big things that it's been causing waves that they're actually sort of surprised about, because it was only like one paragraph, is the sexual fluidity and gender fluidity of the new characters. They made it much easier and, in fact, more encouraging to actually express yourself differently in the gender and sex roles. And that includes not just in making your character, but apparently also in something that was really important, the elven gods and other creatures. For a lot of people, this is really important, and I agree. D&D is the perfect place for this. Because in a video game, a lot of video games that are popular that when you make your own character, there's only so much coding, so it's much harder to do that. D&D doesn't have that limit. So any boundaries on it is just ones we set ourselves, not because it's adds so much work in or something.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's a great step forward. And like I said, look, it's just one paragraph, and yet look how great of it is.
Yeah, and you read this interview. Was there any interesting... Did they have anything that really add to it?
The interview in particular, no. It was mostly... it was finding out why they did it, whether they were scared to do it, which... Well, there's always people online who are they're going to complain because it's not their perfect way or something, or they somehow find it insulting. But, it's more choices to you. It's not forcing you to say, if you're... In fact, it's allowing people who were forced to conform to one another be whatever they want.
No, I think the way that they worded it was very smart. And I think it's even... there's definitely... as many people will point out all the time, multiple times a day, issues in some gaming circles of being more accepting of people. But I think by and large, especially tabletop gaming, is a pretty friendly community. And I think that most people are and especially I think role-playing games. Although, of course, you're going to have your sects of dudes who, they're doing their own thing. It can lend itself to that, to the clique, sort of. But I also think that because it's so imagination-based and so free-form, it's a lot more inviting for a lot of different kinds of people to jump in and be able to choose whoever they want who represents them, whether it be, gender, race, or whatever. So I think it's cool.
Well, yeah, and like you said, it's... Even outside of the groups, it gives people a chance to express themselves, to act in a way without feeling weird, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be the person you want to be,
or be as weird as you want to be.
whatever fits, whatever works for you. I think it's a great step. It allows for more stories, especially this new style is supposed to be for more story-based, correct?
Right, a little bit.
It makes sense if you want to make more about the story and you're acting as your character.
Right.
You got to make it so that their character can express themselves fully, and this is the perfect way to do it.
And we're excited. Soon we're going to get on playing the new one and giving you a taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's going to be time for Kickstarter Pickstarter.
Would you like to go first?
I will go first. So, my Kickstarter this week is going to be the Resistance Hostile Intent.
Ooh.
And there's another one.
Another?
There is. I'm stalling because I forgot the name of it. It's something else with an H. But anyway, it's 2 expansions for the Resistance base game. So the Resistance, again, this is like the greatest hits episode of Roll for Crit. Resistance, another one of my favorites, where it's a social deduction game. One group, some people are secretly spies, and they attempt to sabotage the missions.
Really, I think if you were kind of people who happen to have a lot of people over, it's a game you got to have.
Yes, they're similar to Werewolf or Mafia. If
I can't.
Those.
How many times have we played that game?
About 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's that perfect. I guess perfect in the sense that it's the game to always fall back to if you have a lot of people, especially
easy to teach and doesn't take very long.
Yeah, and
fits a lot of people.
And everyone's not ready to fall back on spending 4 hours in Arkham or in Battlestar.
So anyway, the expansions in this, it's 2, and you get both of them if you back it. So a lot of it is just reworked cards from the Resistance Avalon, which was the Merlin King Arthur themed set that added a lot more different roles to the game that made it a lot more interesting, certainly for our group. So if you haven't had Avalon, or if you just liked the sci-fi theme of the original, you get that. There's also some new modes in this, including some Kickstarter exclusive ones if you back it. There's one that in particular I thought was really interesting where, in Avalon, there is the method where one team has the assassin and one team someone is Merlin. Mm-hmm. And at the end, if the bad guys can figure out who Merlin is,
they win.
Well, in this one, both teams have a secret guy. So both teams' goals are to kill the other person.
I like that a lot. That makes things much more...
You're going to like this one, too. This one's even better.
Is everyone a dinosaur?
Yes.
Yes!
Yeah. There's more new roles where people have their own victory conditions. So there can be someone who's not on either team.
That's great, because it's going back how we relate to Mafia. I know on StarCraft 2, someone modded one of the multiplayer games, so it was Mafia. And because it was a video game, it allowed for a lot of different roles. Like one role, I know when we played a lot that was fun to be, was the Joker. The Joker wins if you hung him. Like, he actually was trying to prove he was bad.
Huh.
Yeah, and so they have all these different roles like that, which made
that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. That's the whole joke.
I like that. Yeah, so
I'm excited to hear. Have they announced what the other roles are yet, or
they haven't said specifics? They just gave those kind of general descriptions.
That's definitely awesome, and definitely would bring a lot more to it, because especially after when we've played it, as we said, a lot.
The only thing I think I have the first edition of the Resistance. Mm-hmm. I think these cards might only be compatible with second edition.
What's the difference?
The art, and I think the cards are a little bigger. They just reworked it. But so look into it before to make sure you know what you're getting.
Well, my Kickstarter is actually related to one I've actually mentioned many times before. A long time ago, one of my first board game Kickstarters I backed was Secrets of the Hidden Temple. The Lost Temple, wow. I'm thinking the TV show.
That should be a board game, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, yes. In this game, you pretty much explore a temple, and it's sort of like Betrayal on the House on the Hill, where you actually put down tiles, look around, and then monsters. Now, what they want to do is add, figures for everything. So what they added is a new Kickstarter. This kind of Kickstarter helps actually funding making all these figures. If it goes through, I believe it's over 100 in total. Which is, wow, really nice. Yeah. And what's also awesome is all the levels actually include getting the game. So you can get the game if you didn't get back it the first time. Including actually upgrading your own level if you backed it last time to the Glory Seeker level, which was like the top level last time, to get everything. You get all the figures, you get the game, you get the expansions, all the Kickstarter exclusives. And, it's just really awesome to see that. And of course, there's a painted level if you want to do that.
And you did not receive the original game yet, correct?
No. That's the nice thing. They said it's already in production, so literally this Kickstarter does not slow down the other one. They already have the 3D models out ready. Literally, they just need to see if they can make the money to actually print them.
Okay.
So, the risk is very low for this one, which is another nice thing.
I should say you reminded me, the Resistance one as well, you can do a lot of add-ons for any of the Resistance 2nd edition or Avalon or other games they publish, like Flashpoint, if you don't have them. So it's nice when they do that, let you dig into their back catalog as a bonus. And adds that incentive.
I've noticed a lot of the more mainstream board game companies are taking advantage of that, because this is a great place to be like, let's see if they're interested in getting like a bigger box of Temple Run or something.
Right.
But maybe they want to buy also some of these other games.
Why don't you throw this in while you're buying?
Because really, you're sort of skipping a middleman.
And when some of them are hard to find, like we said, it's great to just be able to go right there and get it from Kickstarter.
Or, if, like you said with Resistance, what if you heard of it but you didn't get it? And I'm like, well, I want to get this. Oh, they have the game there. I'll just get it all here. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's Kickstarter.
Yep. I think it's time for our topic of the week. So, our topic of the week, deck building. Now, I'm hoping you've actually had a chance to play them, because I find them fun. But the idea behind a deck building game is usually you start with a bunch of basic cards. Usually to get either small attack or buying, to pretty much buy more cards, build your deck, and make it stronger.
Buying in the game, to clarify, not with real money.
Yes, that's important. This isn't Magic like a trading card game. You get all the cards in the set. And it's simple as that, usually. I mean, the basic is just that. You
start small and you build up. Mm-hmm. And you customize yourself.
And usually you actually get cards to also destroy cards in your own deck, so you can also thin it out to make sure it stays a nice, perfect size, not just so it's so big you can never get the one card you need.
Right. I guess Dominion is really... maybe not the first, but the first one that blew up this genre.
Yeah.
And went on to have 18 million expansions and different versions.
Well, and that's another thing about these games, the expansions.
Yes, it is. Well, that's true. It's sort of something with every game, but it seems like with the deck building, because I think it's so easy to just add more cards.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, it allows itself to really throw in another mechanic, maybe, or just add new cards.
But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, of course.
We should talk about the deck building itself. So, like, what is it that's so super duper fun about
it's simple.
Building a deck?
Like, really, all you know is I have 6 cards each turn. Usually, on my turn, I can't do anything to interrupt anything else. So it's not like you're thinking every 5 seconds, what if he plays this? You look at what you want to buy, you buy it, you're done.
That's true.
You don't have, the strategy isn't nearly as, or like if you know your strategy, it's more like I'm going to buy the cards that do drawing, or I'm going to do the ones that do this. So really, you can already scan through, because usually there's only like 5 options there.
I think in essence, it takes one of the big parts of collectible card games, which is customizing your deck over a long period of time and buying new cards. It distills that down into one game experience.
Right.
So I think what makes the simplicity and the fact that you're choosing your own cards. So like if you're doing well, you sort of feel some ownership over, I picked these cards. I'm doing a good job playing the game, instead of just, oh, they gave me this deck. I just happen to be doing okay. And definitely it lends itself to a lot of different styles, so you can easily give any theme as many
question.
have.
I mean, especially copyright. That's another big thing.
As we've seen from Cryptozoic, who I think that's like all they do now is they just throw a dart at a board and it lands on Sesame Street, Sesame Street deck builder.
You didn't hear? They're making the Sesame Street deck building.
That would be pretty good, actually. It's like you got to buy letters.
Actually, what you have to do is, instead of defeating a villain, you have to defeat a problem.
Anyway.
You know they'll do it.
But Cryptozoic, of course, has the DC, Street Fighter, Lord of the Rings.
Naruto coming up.
They've got a few other
We really
ones.
can't mention, I'd say, the competition to that. Their Chimera engine, which is what that entire system is called. The legendary deck building game,
which is the Cerebrus engine, does have a name. Yes, legendary is definitely. Well, I don't know if they're so much the direct competitor.
Well, I do in the sense because they both start with like the
one
DC,
Marvel. One's Marvel.
They just seemed like the competitors.
But I think they've sort of effectively carved their own.
Both of them have said like, we have this. We're also going to get other copyrights.
Right, and of course, other big ones, Thunderstone and Ascension.
Those are more though not. They don't have. They really have their own story though. It's not really
Right, of course,
that's
of course.
why-
Like Dominion, but
Yeah.
which Dominion is sort of more of a generic. I feel like the Dominion is really the. It's the introductory one. I mean, for me, so I do like deck building. One of my favorite games, Legendary. I like Dominion. I like the DC. Okay, I like the deck building, but I definitely think the part of the problem with it is. Which is not really, it's sort of just inherent in the design, is the way, like we said, you start off small and you end up big. The beginning of the game sometimes is a little bit of you're buying all these weak cards. It can take a little bit of time to get to the good stuff, and sometimes if the good stuff doesn't always come out or someone else takes what you wanted, that can be kind of annoying.
In every game, there's always that possibility. Maybe you want that plot of land katana, and someone else builds a house there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true.
I think another thing that you've said many times with some of them is that they're all the same.
Right.
Like they don't add too much to the.
That's why, like, I always appreciate in Legendary expansions when there's some new little twist to add to it. But eventually, it really is. You're drawing your cards, you buy things, and you can attack things. And sometimes it's a little different. Sometimes there's more. You fight your opponents. Sometimes it's more solitary. You don't really interact as much. But I have yet to see. I feel like we've almost reached a breaking point of someone needs to come along now and add the next thing to deck building, because at least for me, I feel like with the current model, they've done everything you can do.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, at this point, a lot of it, that at least the ones that we're really noticing that come up more, are really not because, it's a new cool strategy or that's something new. It's like, it's this copyright, which I love.
Star Trek has one.
Star
that's
Trek,
another one.
or like we said, like with the DC, DC. Oh, now I can do DC with some Street Fighter, and then I can also throw Naruto in there.
Right.
Or like, Alien and Legend. Like I can have Spider-Man fighting off an alien.
Right. Which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as long as it's playable, of course.
Yeah.
Which they are, but.
Yeah, but I don't know how do you build a better deck builder.
How to build a better deck.
I don't know. I think it will take a better game designer than I am, but I want to see it. Well, one thing that I do like is sometimes Mage Knight is a game that
actually that was about to like how when it's not like the main thing, but it's part of it.
Incorporates deck building into it.
Because so part of it is exploring, because you don't just get the money; you have to actually get it. Like
so in Mage Knight, there's spells always available, or there are always spells, right?
There's spells. There's also like units.
And as you play the normal game, you can also buy cards and you get them for your hand. So that definitely adds a wrinkle to it, which I like.
So maybe the next step in deck building is really more like maybe you set up a board, and while you're exploring, maybe you find equipment and you shuffle in with your equipment. And
sort of even you could sort of say the same thing about games with campaigns in them, like Descent, which lets you purchase new cards for your personal deck over a long period of time. So I mean, essentially, building your deck, like as we said, has been around since Magic and everything, but before now they never put it into its own game. But yeah, I agree. Putting it on top of other things, it's good. I guess they already did that then.
Well, and I guess we should mention how the difference between this and a living card game, because that while they all come in the set, that really is more like,
from my view, fairly slim, that difference. Well, I will say, what are you going to say?
I find it's sort of the child, in a way, of like a deck building game and a regular trading card game. Because you get all the cards there. But really, it's not as much you build the deck in the game, you're building it beforehand. Right.
That's true, yeah. It's really is... Because you can... like, if you had every Ascension expansion, you're not... You mix them together, but not beforehand. Like with Netrunner, you start with your deck preconceived.
Right.
So it really is more like the traditional model, but with fixed packs. But I definitely do feel like they're, at least in the way that releases come out, like there's a fine line. Like I'm not sure about this, but I think that Fantasy Flight has a copyright on the term living card game.
Every one I can think of is theirs, but
Yeah, so like there's some games that I feel like that's kind of a living card game, but they just don't want to call it that. But yeah, even though, and I think part of the reason, most of my distaste, if I have any, for deck building games comes from just the fact that I've played them so many times.
But that's also the beauty of them. I mean, you can play them a lot. It's simple to set up. It's easy to get people into.
Yeah.
It's really the best game, one of the better games to take up. Like, hey guys, want to play a game? Like to the people who don't really play board games or something.
Definitely. I mean, the paperback, the Kickstarter game that you got is a deck building game where you spell. I think that's a great example of bringing people in.
And I'd love to see people who actually, have a large vocabulary actually play instead of us. Instead of us doing dog.
That dog play was epic, though.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Our producer has informed us they do, in fact, own the term living card game.
Well, that's interesting to see how they hold on to it, because how certain words like Kleenex or
Right.
like if they become more commonly used, it becomes more.
Well, eventually they're just going to say, this is our breathing card game, or something like that. If you have any thoughts at home on how to build a better deck builder, or if you have favorite deck building games of your own, or some that you just don't like, or something else about the mechanic, let us know. Please send us an email about it. rollforcrit@gmail.com.
But I believe there's other ways they can talk to us.
Oh, tell me.
I believe they can also comment on this video right down below.
Oh, they can!
Yeah! They can also get our Facebook page, Roll for Crit, and of course, there's our Twitters.
Oh yeah, there are our Twitters.
Yeah, at Roll for Crit, or our personal Twitters.
What's yours?
Oh, mine's at Dorokiryu.
Mine is at Quentz and at Ivan R. Hahn, the guy who just let us know Fantasy Flight owns LCG. Don't forget, please, if you would like, subscribe,
Click
like
the button.
us,
Right down there.
all that stuff. We used to be on iTunes. We're trying to fix that. If you're subscribing only through iTunes, you might not hear this episode.
We'll get back to it as soon as we can.
And if you want to buy some deck building games or anything else, we have a lot of...
Do you have any suggestions where they should start?
Well, I think if you've never played a deck building game, you got to go for Dominion.
Of course.
Because that's your quintessential one. And from there, I would say go with the property that intrigues you.
I mean, like you said, you love Legendary, you love Marvel.
Of course, that's the one I would recommend.
Yeah, and I mean, I got the DC, but that was really because you had the Legendary. But I'm excited. I'm getting the Legendary Alien because I've loved Alien since I was 4 or 5. So.
And Thunderstone and Ascension both, I think, are on digital too. So if you, I think they have free. Before you can buy anything, you can download it and try it. So that's awesome. A good way to just try it out before you buy something. But yeah, there's a lot of good ones out there, and I'm sure there will be more. If you want to buy any, go to our site at rollforcrit.com, where you can also read all the news stories we talked about this week.
And let's not forget that they can now earn crit points.
Oh yeah, big announcements for our site. We now have crit points, which is a new thing.
You actually, for every $1 you spend, you get a crit point. These crit points can be saved up and then used to get discounts on future purchases. Once more, for those of you who already bought things, we're not leaving you out in the cold. You get all the crit points you would have earned as if it was starting at the beginning of the website.
We're sharing the love with you, everybody. So definitely check those out because it's a great deal, although I'm incredibly biased in saying so. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that sounds like it.
Okay. I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.